To make switching to the new Boost Mobile risk-free, we're offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
So why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Because you have nothing to lose. Boost Mobile is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
No, I asked why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Oh.
Wouldn't.
Because you love wasting money as a way to punish yourself because your mother never showed you enough love as a child?
Whoa. Easy there.
Yeah.
Applies to online activations. Requires port in and auto pay. Customers activating in stores may be charged non-refundable activation fees.
It's Saturday the 28th of September. I'm Ciara Evans, and this was a week that saw Labour battle through a stormy conference. Ukrainian President Zelensky lobbying in the USA. Details revealed of an Iranian assassination plot against Donald Trump. And Philip Schofield getting cast away on Channel 5.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
Labour's annual conference kicked off on Sunday in Liverpool, the first in power for almost 15 years. But instead of a week of celebration, it turned into another week of misery for the party as the donations row rumbled on. The latest Labour figure in the spotlight last weekend was Deputy Leader Angela Rayner, after the Sunday Times reported that she broke parliamentary rules by failing to declare a stay with then MP Sam Tarry at a donor's apartment in New York last December. But Angela, who denies the allegations, seemed unfazed as she delivered the conference's opening speech, promising that they're definitely less scandalous than the Tories.
Even now, there will be no complacency. Don't forget what they did. Partygate, the lies, division, scapegoating and the unfunded tax cuts for the richest that crashed our economy. Don't forget any of it.
Foreign Secretary David Lammy was next up and reflected on Labour's incredible comeback.
We are forever grateful to you for the greatest electoral turnaround in our party's history, from electoral oblivion to a Labour majority. Thank you.
Angela wasn't the only one under fire, with stories about Keir Starmer, Chancellor Rachel Reeves and Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson. Bridget was under scrutiny for hosting a networking event ahead of her 40th, which she insists wasn't a birthday party, but she did have a very relatable reason for accepting Taylor Swift tickets earlier this year.
I'll be honest, it was a hard one to turn down. I appreciate there was big demand. It was a privilege to be there. One of my children was keen to go along. It's hard to say no if you're offered tickets in those circumstances, but I do recognise that I'm in a fortunate position to be able to receive it.
Monday saw Chancellor Rachel Reeves give her keynote speech to delegates and tried to set a more positive tone after weeks of gloom over the black hole in the public finances.
There will be no return to austerity. Conservative austerity was a destructive choice for our public services. Yes, we must deal with the Tory legacy, and that means tough decisions. But I won't let that dim our ambition for Britain.
That positive move didn't last long though, as while Reeves was speaking, members of the Royal College of Nursing announced that they are rejecting the government's pay deal. Over 2/3 of members declined the 5.5% offer, and they've written to Health Secretary Wes Streeting to call for further talks. Chief Secretary to the Treasury Darren Jones told Radio 4 that the financial pressure on the government remains intense.
There's a negotiation that's more than just money. I'm sure the RCN and other unions will recognise we've got to balance the books this year, and we were landed with a difficult set of spending pressures that in this first year of our government we've just got to clear up before we can start to set out our own plans.
As the donation route continued, former footballer and Sky pundit Gary Neville, who was attending the Labour conference, was calling for a bit of perspective.
It seems to me that they're being given a bit of a rough ride on certain things that the previous government didn't seem to be given a rough ride on. Rishi's £40 million helicopter contract seems to have been sort of forgotten about. We'll concentrate on a few tickets for an Arsenal match. Labour
leader Keir Starmer was under quite a bit of pressure as he made his leader's speech between the anger over the cut to the winter fuel allowance, the grim warnings about austerity and a £22 billion hole in the public finances, and polling that showed his personal popularity had dropped 45 points to below that of Rishi Sunak. But apart from a slip of the tongue that saw him call for the release of the sausages instead of hostages, he delivered a strong speech with plenty of policy, including a new approach to migration, a pledge to crack down on benefit fraud and ease inflation. He was also promising real change.
An NHS facing the future. Town centres thriving. Borders controlled at last. That is what people will get. And mark my words, we will deliver it.
The Labour Party conference wrapped up on Wednesday with an embarrassing defeat for the new government as members voted in favour of a motion to reinstate the universal winter fuel allowance.
As I said earlier, shouting at me doesn't do anybody any favours. That was carried.
The resolution is non-binding, but it's still a sign of the anger within the party ranks at the controversial move, which is intended as the first step in filling the black hole in the public finances. Sharon Graham, the Secretary-General of the Unite, spoke strongly against the cuts, pointing out that the UK is the world's 6th largest economy and that austerity Mark II is not needed.
We won't get any gold badges for shaving peanuts off our debt. These fiscal rules are self-imposed and the decision to keep them is hanging like a noose around our necks.
It was another week of escalating tension in the Middle East as Israel shifted their focus north. Last weekend saw an Israeli strike on southern Beirut kill 14 people, including a senior Hezbollah commander, and injured more than 60. Israel claims to have launched 400 attacks on Lebanon overnight Sunday, whilst Hezbollah fired rockets at an airbase near the Israeli city of Haifa. Fears of all-out war continued to grow. Palestinian ambassador to the UK, Hussam Zamalat, said Israel's actions have ruled out the possibility of a ceasefire anytime soon.
A ceasefire deal was on the table for the last 4 months, and simply Netanyahu has refused all these offers. The Israeli government has not only changed the goalpost when it came to the negotiations about a ceasefire, but the whole pitch.
Monday saw Israel sharply escalate strikes in Lebanon as it stepped up its campaign against Hezbollah. At least 500 people were killed and over 1,300 were injured, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. The IDF sent phone messages to residents of areas they were targeting, warning them to evacuate, which sparked panic and traffic jams as people attempted to flee the area. Tzipora Hatovli, Israel's ambassador to the UK, says Israel is focused on Hezbollah's military sites.
We managed to restore peace and quiet to our northern border for many years. What we want is to dismantle Hezbollah's abilities from this arsenal of rockets that came from Iran, the same Iran that is firing and backing up Russia against Ukraine. We are fighting the West battle.
Israel continued to send mixed messages as it launched wave after wave of brutal airstrikes on South Lebanon. But at the UN, its ambassador Danny Danon was assuring allies that Israel is still hoping for de-escalation and a diplomatic solution. The airstrikes have killed hundreds and over 2,000 bombs dropped in a 24-hour period. And Israel also claimed to have killed another senior Hezbollah commander in a strike on the Lebanese capital Beirut on Tuesday evening. Meanwhile, Sam Rose from the UN Refugee Agency says with no sign of a ceasefire, the situation in Gaza remains desperate.
The majority of those killed and injured are women, children and the elderly. 9 out of 10 people in Gaza are displaced, living in the most awful of conditions. And with every day that the conflict goes on, conditions just get worse.
At least 50 more people were killed in Israeli strikes on Lebanon on Wednesday as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed that he would not rest until residents in the north of Israel could return home. There's been increasing diplomatic pressure from the attendees at the UN General Assembly calling for a halt to the ongoing escalation. The French President Emmanuel Macron said Israel must not start a war in Lebanon and that Hezbollah must stop firing towards Israel. The US, UK, EU and France have joined together to call for a 21-day ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, and UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says the situation on the ground is dire.
Hell is breaking loose in Lebanon. As I told the General Assembly, we should all be alarmed by the escalation. Lebanon is at the brink.
The Israeli Prime Minister arrived in New York to address the UN, but he told reporters that there's no prospect of any pause in fighting until Israel has met its goals and that they will continue to strike Hezbollah with full force. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer addressed the General Assembly on Thursday night and used the opportunity to make a further call for diplomatic efforts.
I call on Israel and Hezbollah, stop the violence, step back from the brink. We need to see an immediate ceasefire to provide space for a diplomatic settlement.
This week saw Russia suffer a setback in its intercontinental ballistic missile testing as satellite pictures of a launch site for the Sarmat missile appeared to show a catastrophic failure to launch. That's good news as the missiles are intended to be a key part of Russia's upgrade on its nuclear arsenal, and it came as Ukrainian President Zelensky faced a big week in the US. He was set to meet US President Biden and Vice President Harris to present his victory plan and was also scheduled to speak at the UN General Assembly in New York. After 2.5 years of war and some wobbly European allies, allies, Zelensky is facing serious challenges and will be hoping for substantial support from the US. Former British Defence Attaché in Moscow, John Foreman, says the American election will be on his mind.
I think he's trying to press on to the Americans that the situation is difficult, US support is vital, and he needs all the support the US can give, regardless of who's in the White House.
On Tuesday, Zelensky was busy with a series of bilateral meetings, even as Russian strikes killed 3 people and wounded at least 25 in the city of Kharkiv. He met with the leaders of Germany, India and Japan and spoke with the Security Council about the progress he's made on a peace agreement.
Putin has stolen much already, but he will never steal the world's future. We are now preparing for the second peace summit, and we are preparing a document to present.
The UN General Assembly on Wednesday saw British Foreign Secretary David Lammy gave a strong speech condemning Vladimir Putin and his empire built on lies and corruption.
I stand here as a black man whose ancestors were taken in chains from Africa at the barrel of a gun to be enslaved. Imperialism, I know it when I see it.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer also called out Russia for showing its face in the UN building, while Denmark's Prime Minister condemned China for its role in supporting Russia and warned of consequences. Ukrainian President Zelensky made his formal address to the Assembly, calling for a real and just peace for Ukraine and warning that Russia's war crimes cannot go unchecked. He also warned that Putin's reckless behaviour could see a nuclear disaster which would affect millions across Europe.
Now Putin does seem to be planning attacks on our nuclear power plants and the infrastructure, aiming to disconnect the plants from the power grid with the help of satellites, by the way, satellites of other countries.
Thursday saw the Ukrainian president head to the White House to present his victory plan. He's found himself out of favour with Republicans as Donald Trump initially refused to meet him, and a visit to a munitions plant in Pennsylvania led to a dispute with Republican Speaker Mike Johnson. Not to be outdone, Russian President Putin was busy escalating his threats in a bid to slow any decision to let Ukraine use long-range weapons.
We reserve the right to use nuclear weapons in the event of aggression against Russia, including if the enemy, using conventional weapons, creates a critical threat to our sovereignty.
The US announced a further $8 billion aid package for Ukraine, but the details of Zelensky's victory plan have not been revealed in detail. After the White House meeting, Zelensky and Kamala Harris held a joint press conference at which she criticised those, including Trump, who want Ukraine to surrender territory to Russia.
These proposals are the same of those of Putin. And let us be clear, they are not proposals for peace. Instead, they are proposals for surrender, which is dangerous and unacceptable.
This week saw more back and forward between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris over the prospect of a second TV debate before the presidential election in November. Trump has been reluctant to engage again, although he maintains he won the first debate. This week he's been busy on the campaign trail, continuing to rant about refugees in Springfield, obsessing about whether or not Kamala Harris actually worked in McDonald's, and starting a row with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Trump ally Senator Lindsey Graham says Trump will end the war in Ukraine if he wins November's election.
Here's what I think will happen if President Trump wins. He will end this war. It concerns me that Iran's running wild on Biden's watch. It didn't happen on Trump's watch. Harris and Biden are a disaster.
Tuesday saw US President Joe Biden make his final speech to the UN General Assembly. He spoke about his decision to step down from the presidential race, and he also restated his condemnation of Russia's President Putin for the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. He spoke too on the Israeli conflict, condemning the Hamas attacks on October 7th, while also expressing sympathy for the millions of Gazans going through hell. Biden closed his speech with a call for leaders to hand over the reins of power when their time is up to protect democracy.
Being president has been the honor of my life. There's so much more I want to get done. As much as I love the job, I love my country more. I decided after 50 years of public service, it's time for a new generation of leadership to take my nation forward.
News emerged on Wednesday that Donald Trump's campaign has been briefed by US intelligence officials on a suspected Iranian plot to assassinate him. It's understood the Iranians have also hacked his campaign and have been offering emails and documents to media outlets. Wednesday also saw a Senate report on the first attempt on Trump's life, which saw him injured and a rally-goer killed in Butler, Pennsylvania. The report concluded that there had been serious leadership failures in the Secret Service team assigned to protect him. Meanwhile, with polling consistently showing Kamala Harris leading the election race, she sat down with CBS on Wednesday evening and was asked about Trump, his tariff-based economic policies and his views on abortion.
Look, I think the thing about Donald Trump is that,
I don't think the women of America need him to say he's going to protect them. The women of America need him to trust them.
Can we trust you?
Yes. Yes.
Still to come in the Standout 7, Aubrey Plaza needs your Wi-Fi password and Philip Schofield gets cast away.
Right after this.
To get people excited about Boost Mobile's new nationwide 5G network, we're offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 a month.
Forever.
Even if you have a baby.
Even if your baby has a baby.
Even if you grow old and wrinkly and you start repeating yourself.
Even if you start repeating yourself.
Even if you're on your deathbed and you need to make one last call.
Or text.
Right, or text the long-lost son you abandoned at birth.
You'll still get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile.
Forever!
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Forever.
Welcome back.
The UK's prison system was back in the spotlight on Thursday as it emerged that 37 prisoners had been granted early release because of a system error. Prisons across the UK are overcrowded, and on the 10th of September, the government began an early release programme across England and Wales that saw 1,700 prisoners released after serving part of their sentences. The number is expected to rise to over 5,000, but now the Ministry for Justice has confirmed that some of the released prisoners were people who had been convicted for breaching restraining orders. That category of prisoner should not have been released, and former Chief Inspector of Prisons Nick Hardwick is blaming red tape.
It looks to me like the problem here was the drafting of the order that specified who could and couldn't be released under this early release scheme. It looks to me like it's a policy error rather than an operational error.
It's only been 16 months since one of TV's biggest stars quit after a storm of controversy over an inappropriate relationship with a younger colleague. But now Philip Schofield is back, and this time it's on Channel 5. He left this morning after behaviour he himself described as unwise but not illegal, and now he's appearing in a new show called Castaway, which sees him marooned on an abandoned desert island with only cameras for company. One assumes that Channel 5 HR have signed off on the show, and you can expect plenty of mournful self-reflection over 3 nights from next Monday, as Phil spends 10 days pretending to be Tom Hanks.
I've been cast away on a desert island. It's my chance to tell my side of my story. I know what I did was unwise, but is it enough to absolutely destroy someone?
We're about to see a lot of Aubrey Plaza on screen. She's in 3 major projects, all of which are landing around the same time. She's in the new Marvel TV show Agatha All Along. She's starring in the epic Megalopolis, and she's also in the slightly ridiculous time-travelling comedy My Old Ass. She's also got a Golden Globe nomination and an SAG award for her role in season 2 of The White Lotus, and she told NBC's Today Show that she never actually got to watch the show, but only because she couldn't figure out the Wi-Fi.
I was shooting Megalopolis, actually, I believe, when the show was airing, and I was staying in some Airbnb in Atlanta, and I couldn't figure out the system.
Yeah, you don't know how it works.
You know, so I gave up, and, you know, but I'm going to get there.
You'll get there eventually.
I absolutely will.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, and we'll give you the world.
The new Boost Mobile network is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for life.
That sounds like a threat.
Then how do you think we should say it?
Unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for the rest of your life?
I don't know.
Until your ultimate demise.
What if we just say forever?
Okay.
$25 a month, forever.
Get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile forever.
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.